Hi everyone. So in this lecture, we are going to go over the navigation bar or whatever this little tab is on the left side. I couldn't really find a name for it, but I'll call it navigation bar. That's what it does for us. So this basically shows you what all you have, what PLC you have, and all that. So help basically is there so you can go and find out some help options. Under controller, this is where you would have your controller properties. So in our case, we'll double click this. We can give it a name. I'll leave it to untitled. Don't really need one to it. Then compiler, password. If you want to do a password for the PLC, typically we don't do that because if you forget it, it's really difficult to get back online with it and change it. So, and on the controller communication, this is where you would set up what this controller is set up to talk to and what's the timeout. And that's it for the controller properties. Under processor status, this is where you would know if there is like an alarm on the processor and its maximum scan time we have and what kind of is it running or not. You can debug a few stuff, check the error code on the processor if it's a major or minor error, check the protection status on it if it's got a memory module or if you have forces enabled and installed. So like if you see up here we have forces enabled, so that's what this is showing. I've not really used the function files in this thing. I don't think I've ever had a need to. So now this is the key. This is the IO config. This is where you would set up your PLC IO and stuff like that. We'll cover that on the next one in detail when we get to it. But I'll show you what it looks like. You basically select what you want and bring it in and close it, or you can read it from a physical rack if you have one. Channel config. This is where you would set up your communication setup on the processor, if it's got an Ethernet or a serial, what kind of speed it is, and all that happy stuff. So, under program files, this is where you have your main ladder. These two just stay. If you can click on the properties, it's reserved. And then under ladder 2 is which we would have here where you can start typing stuff. Now you can rename this, it doesn't have to be that. So we rename it to, let's say, main. And now we have a main, ladder 2 is main now. So under properties, it knows what it is. We have a file number for it and all that stuff. If you want to add a new ladder, you just right click and add a new ladder. That's how easy it is. Data file, this is where you would have your cross reference option and how much output and input and all the other stuff you have. These two are based on the IO config. Binary is something you can modify, add more. Timer, counter, control, integers are the same. All these are the same way. Now you can add more files if you need. Let's say it's getting full. You can add more data files to this by right clicking and creating a new one and giving it a different name. So under logging, if you're ever trying to use logging on this thing, you would configure it and read back or see what it is doing. You also have a force file, so you can create a force file and execute it all at once if you want to. These three I have not really used much on this processor. Then on the database, this is where you have your address and tools, what all default address you have from the processor and what it looks like. Then there are comments for the instruction you can add. You can add rung comments or page title, which we would go over when we start typing stuff. If you right click on here, I can add a comment or edit a title, which would give me that. And then you have symbol and addresses function. So that's it for this navigation bar thing, and we'll cover the IO config and channel config in the next lecture. Thank you.